Hi everybody. Well, it's practically the end of the year right now. We've only got about one day left, which means that I need to wrap up this series I've been doing on Steven Soderbergh. Missed a couple of weeks, but it's last week of the year, and so I need to finish up. Which is fortunate because there's only going to do one more video, so I'm going to do my wrap-up and my last video on this at the same time, which technically is the same thing, a wrap-up video, the last video, whatever. Anyway, there were two more movies that I wanted to talk about in this series, one of which has actually not come out yet. It comes out January 20th. It's called Haywire. It's an action thriller. The cast includes people like Michael Douglas, Antonio Banderas, Ewan McGregor, Michael Fassbender, Bill Paxton, Channing Tatum. Nice supporting cast. But the lead is played by Gina Carano, who is not actually a TV or film actress. She is a mixed martial artist. She appeared on the recent version of American Gladiators, I believe. This is what I've been told. I didn't actually watch the show. But she is not actually a film or television actress, and so therefore this movie shares something in common with another Soderbergh movie called The Girlfriend Experience, which came out in the spring of 2009. The star of this movie is Sasha Grey. Sasha Grey is an adult entertainment performer, otherwise known as a porn star. She's made lots and lots of adult videos. She's very well regarded in the industry, and so Soderbergh decided, I like her persona a lot. I think we're going to cast her in the lead in this movie. And the movie basically is about a very high-priced escort, professional escort, who works in New York City and has a lot of clients there who she provides the girlfriend experience for. Doesn't just show up and have sex with them, but she will spend like a night and go to dinner, go to a show, whatever, socialize, act like an actual girlfriend, hence the title. Now, this movie came out in the spring of 2009. Of course, it was shot the previous fall as the whole financial meltdown was happening, and so there's a lot of talk from her clients about what's happening in the financial sector. So there's that aspect. There's also the fact that she's actually in a relationship with a guy, living with a guy in an apartment, a personal trainer. And they have certain rules for their relationship, certain things that he doesn't want her doing in order to feel good about their relationship. And when she basically meets a writer as a potential client, she had just had a bad experience with the last guy she had an appointment with. He was sort of an internet blogger. He was a real scuzzy guy, and so she was feeling kind of vulnerable, and he was a sympathetic ear to her, and she started developing feelings for him, so now she's thinking of exploring a relationship with this other guy as well, and so her current boyfriend is not happy about that. Generally, I think this movie is really good. I am not really in a position to judge Sasha Grey's acting in this one. I think she's fine, but it's not like, as far as I can tell, a really demanding role. But, she plays it well. She does what we need to. I have a feeling that she'll come off better in that movie than Gina Carano will. I have nothing to base this on other than the fact that I've just seen a couple of clips. But I've also read an article about a person who saw Haywire and said, yeah, she's not that great. But, like I said, I haven't seen it yet, so I can't judge. But they have this in common. I'm really looking forward to Haywire. And, so that is, one other thing I wanted to say about The Girlfriend Experience is it's another Soderbergh film that has the jumbled timeline, a bit like The Limey, and a few of the other movies that he's done. I didn't think it worked as well in this movie because the timeline is jumbled without a real clear pattern. There's scenes in a mixed-up order, and it's not really clear why they're in this order at all, why the sequence of the timeline is mixed up. In fact, there's a scene in which she's having an argument with her boyfriend, and the argument basically takes place over one long unbroken shot, and the shot is basically cut in half, and the second half of the shot is shown first, and the first half of the shot is shown much later. I'm not really sure why he did that. There didn't seem to be any particular reason for that other than just to make the film more interesting. And, when you have a convoluted timeline like that, when you have a mix-up chronology, as a viewer, you have to work a little harder to keep up with the story and understand what's going on. So that's a little bit more engaging. It's better than just having everything straightforward. At least most of the time it's better that way. I'm not sure if it is all the time. I just saw a film called Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which was a bit confusing and actually pretty dull, and it had a somewhat mixed-up timeline. Maybe a little bit more clear than The Girlfriend Experience, but still not entirely successful by my reckoning. Anyway, I'll probably do a video on Haywire when it comes out, because it's one of those movies I'm really looking forward to in 2012. But I want to do a quick recap here. The films that I did in my series were all films that I would recommend to one degree or another. Some less so, but there aren't any that I covered that I wouldn't recommend. Would just say, no, don't go and see it. The only Soderbergh films that I haven't liked wholeheartedly, I mean the ones that I just didn't like, just had a negative reaction to, were Ocean's 13 and Kafka. And I didn't even really talk about those, so I would say avoid those. But it was funny, since I was doing these in pairs, I was pairing them up in ways that I thought were relevant, and I always sort of ended up, comparing the two and deciding which one was better or worse. First I did Sex, Lies, and Videotape, which was his first film, and King of the Hill. And I like those both a lot, although King of the Hill I like more now because I think I can appreciate it a little bit better than when it first came out. Unfortunately, that movie is not on DVD. I had to get the VHS in order to watch it again. Then I did The Underneath, which is a decent thriller, and Schizopolis, which is a very experimental film, just sort of crazy and outlandish, and he's trying all kinds of different things. He really wasn't happy doing The Underneath, and so he decided to go back home and just make a super low-budget movie with just people he knew personally, and that turns out to really sort of refresh and recharge his creative battery, so then he was actually jump into big productions, such as Out of Sight and The Limey, which were the next two films we did, and they're both excellent. They're both terrific movies, my favorite movies by far of the ones that he's done. And after that, I looked at the two movies that he was nominated for Best Director for, Aaron Brockovich and Traffic. And although Aaron Brockovich is decent, doesn't compare to Traffic. Traffic's a really excellent movie, and I haven't liked that as much in the past, but again, I think I can appreciate it more now. And he won Best Director for that, amazingly enough. So good on him. Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, these are, real popular hit movies. And Ocean's 12 isn't really well-liked enough by... well, I guess it isn't nearly as well-liked as Ocean's 11, because Ocean's 11 is more straightforward, but I like Ocean's 12 more because it's more character-oriented, and it just does crazier stuff, just off-the-wall stuff that I think is really awesome, and I really like the style a lot. Then I looked at Che Part 1 and 2, which I found both of these movies to be good, but they're really not my type of movies. I had actually avoided seeing them up until doing this series. And although I guess I learned a lot about Che Guevara and about the whole, revolution, or the two revolutions that he was a part of, again, they're not really my type of movies because they seem a little monotonous. Guys basically just running around in the jungle, getting shot at and trying to take over places. It just seemed like a lot of the same for over the course of two movies. Like Benicio del Toro, like the acting, and there's some intense, battle sequences in there, but... not my favorites. I wouldn't disrecommend them, but they're not my favorites. Then I looked at a couple of George Clooney movies he did, aside from Out of Sight and the Ocean's movies. He did Solaris and The Good German. The Good German's really confusing. I wouldn't really recommend that too highly. Solaris, I think, is really good, but again, that's not to all taste. It's kind of remote and kind of a pretty sad movie. But I think it's quite good, so I would recommend that one. And then I looked at Full Frontal and Bubble, which were two sort of low-budget experiments that he did, ironically both written by the same screenwriter, which I wasn't aware of before I watched them. Full Frontal has some recognizable Hollywood faces in it, like Julia Roberts and David Duchovny. Bubble has unknowns, but I like Bubble better. I think it's a more consistent movie. Full Frontal's fun, but it's kind of silly and ultimately doesn't make that big of an impression. It's fun and all that, but also the picture quality of the video is really bad. It's before he got his hands on really good video cameras to shoot his films with. Like David Fincher, he does all his shooting digital now, and his movies generally look really good now, but this one is kind of the exception. It doesn't look very good at all. And I did The Informant and Contagion on the last video, both Matt Damon starring films, who also was in the Ocean's movies, both written by Scott Z. Burns, as it turns out, another coincidence. Contagion I like, but it's a little personality-free, and I'm not totally crazy about it. Whereas The Informant I like a lot better. I think it's a lot of fun, and kind of sad as well. Just the character is sad, but all in all, a good movie. So I ended up sort of comparing, a lot of these movies to each other when I was doing them in pairs like this. So the ones I really would say are good are The Informant, Bubble, Solaris, Ocean's 12, Traffic, both Out of Sight and The Limey, Schizopolis, and both Sex, Lies, and Videotape and King of the Hill, with, of course, Out of Sight and The Limey being the ones I like the most. And Soderbergh is just one of those guys who I'm always going to be interested in. He's got a couple movies due to come out He was going to do The Man from U.N.C.L.E., but he's not doing that now. He's actually making an HBO movie. He wanted to do this project, but he couldn't get studio funding, so he's going to be taking it to HBO and having them broadcast it as the premiere. And that's on Liberace. Michael Douglas and Matt Damon star in that one. It's called Behind the Candelabra, I believe. He's got Haywire coming out. He's probably got one other project after that. Oh, Magic Mike, that's right. He's got Channing Tatum and Matthew McConaughey starring in Magic Mike. That should be coming out sometime in 2012. It's about male strippers. Yeah, I mean, although I don't... his average isn't as good as David Fincher, whereas I really like almost all of David Fincher's movies, with the exception of like 2. Soderbergh doesn't have quite a high an average, but I like him just because of his experimental side. You know, he is, willing to try a lot of different stuff. And I just like his style, his whole attitude. He seems to be like a really cool guy, really nice guy. It's clear actors like working with him a lot. So he'll always be one of my favorites. Now, I've got the playlist of all the videos that I've done. The link to that is below if you want to look at any of my particular videos. I've just sort of summed up the whole thing, but if you want to see anything more specific about what I thought of them, the playlist, the link for that is below in the description. And there were a couple of videos that were added by other people. The Inner DVD Pattern, Kyle, he did a video on sex lies and videotape and a video on the Limey. So I've added those to the playlist as well. But yeah, feel free to check them out, and if you want to look at some of these Soderbergh films and you want to do a video on your own reaction to some of them, attach to the video. Do a video response. It doesn't matter if it's 3 months or a year later. I will add them to the playlist, and I will, of course, respond to them because I'd like to know what you think of them. I think he's a great guy to keep up with. And I'm going to be doing another series in the new year, and that new series will involve a guy who doesn't just do films. He's not just a writer and director of films. He is also a writer and director of television series. He's a creator of television series. He is a comic book writer. He is a creator of internet videos. He is, of course, the one and only Joss Whedon, who has The Avengers coming out in just 4 short months. Beginning of May, The Avengers comes out, and he's, of course, the director of Serenity, but he's also the creator of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, Dollhouse, Firefly. He is also the screenwriter who is largely responsible for the success of movies like Toy Story and Speed, and he did a rewrite on X-Men and a few other films that I'm going to get into. In fact, he even mentioned a couple of movies that he just rewrote dialogue on after the film was shot, did post-production. So I'll be covering those of movies as well. I'm not sure how many videos I'm going to do exactly, but I'm trying to cover as much of it as possible because his actual film work isn't all that extensive as far as directing films. But he's a force to be reckoned with creatively. He is a really, really fun guy. He's a great writer, really good with actors, and I just love him. Just love him to death, and I'm so happy that he got the opportunity to reach a huge international audience with The Avengers because he just deserves it. Anyone who's a fan of his work will tell you that he deserves all the acclaim and the attention he's going to get from directing The Avengers, which I hope is going to be fantastic, and I have every reason to believe that it will be. So, thanks very much for watching. Glad those of you who are interested have tuned into these videos, and stay tuned, of course, for more in the new year. Thanks again, everybody. Bye.